We all think we know the sound of music inside and out. It's a kind of movie families watch every holiday season. The kind of film that feels so polished and perfect it seems impossible that anything could have gone wrong behind the camera. But what if we told you that one particular moment in the film was left completely untouched, mistake and all, and it made it all the way into theaters without anyone noticing for years? Once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Stick around, because we've dug up more than a dozen strange, funny, and surprising slip-ups hidden throughout this beloved classic, moments that quietly survived the editing room and have been sitting in plain sight ever since. Let's start with the film's most famous image, Maria twirling in an open meadow, arms wide, singing the title song as the mountains rise behind her. It's one of the most iconic opening shots in movie history, but getting it on film was nowhere near as graceful as it looks. The production wanted a sweeping aerial shot, so the crew strapped a camera operator to a helicopter and had the aircraft fly directly toward Julie Andrews as she spun in the grass. The idea sounded simple enough, but helicopters are deafeningly loud, and Andrews couldn't hear a single cue over the noise of the rotors. The choreographer ended up hiding in nearby bushes, screaming directions through a megaphone just to get her timing right. Even worse, the downdraft from the helicopter blades was strong enough to physically knock Andrews off her feet every time the aircraft passed close by. She was sent tumbling into the grass again and again, and by her own account, she spent much of the shoot covered in dirt and hay. It reportedly took close to a week of attempts before they finally captured a take usable for the film. And that wasn't even the only obstacle. The farm that owned the field had agreed to leave the grass tall for filming, but by the time the crew returned, it had already been cut short. The team had to scramble to dress the location, adding an artificial stream and repositioning greenery just to recreate the lush look audiences see on screen. The farmer, understandably, grew frustrated as filming dragged on and disrupted his land and his cattle. What looks like effortless natural beauty in the finished film was, in truth, an engineering project. Not every hardship on this production was about weather or machinery. Some of it was physical, and it happened to the actors themselves. During the filming of 16 Going on 17, the young actress playing Liesel was dancing inside a glass-walled gazebo set when she slipped on the polished floor. She lost her footing and fell directly into one of the glass panels, injuring her ankle badly enough that it needed to be wrapped. Rather than stop production, the crew patched her up, covered the injury with makeup, and adjusted her blocking so the number could be finished without anyone in the audience ever suspecting what had happened just off camera. Interestingly, the gazebo itself caused its own headaches. The real structure that inspired the scene was far too small to comfortably fit a camera crew, so the production built an entirely new, larger version on a studio lot back in the United States, meaning the romantic gazebo audiences remember was never actually filmed at the real Austrian location most viewers assume. Musical choices left their mark too. During Do-Re-Mi, Julie Andrews decided, largely on her own instinct, to hit a note noticeably higher than what was written in the score. It became one of the most memorable flourishes in the entire soundtrack, a small piece of spontaneous artistry that stuck. Editing decisions shaped the film just as much as any accident. Several filmed scenes never made it into the final cut, trimmed away to keep the pacing tight and the emotional momentum moving forward. What we watch today is a leaner, faster version of the story than what was originally shot. When The Sound of Music hit theaters in 1965, expectations were modest at best. Some critics dismissed it as old-fashioned at a time when Hollywood was leaning toward edgier, more cynical storytelling. Audiences disagreed completely. Within about a month, the film had climbed to the top of the box office and simply refused to budge. It eventually overtook Gone with the Wind to become the highest-grossing film of all time, a title it held onto for years. Ticket sales stretched into the hundreds of millions worldwide, and the film shattered records across dozens of countries, staying in theaters in some cities for years at a stretch. Part of what made it endure wasn't just the scenery or the songs, though both certainly helped. It was the emotional simplicity of the story. Family, romance, and quiet courage in the face of danger are themes that translate across generations and cultures without needing much explanation. Julie Andrews' warmth and vocal talent gave the whole film a magnetic center that audiences kept returning to, sometimes multiple times, turning trips to the theater into something closer to a shared ritual than a single viewing. Casting the role of Maria wasn't the easy decision it might look like in hindsight. One of the writers was convinced early on that only one actress could pull off the mix of warmth, humor, and sincerity the role demanded. But at the time, that actress wasn't yet a major star. She had just wrapped 2 films that hadn't even been released yet, and was still best known for her stage work. Studio executives weren't sold. Names like Doris Day, Grace Kelly, Shirley Jones, and several other established stars were floated as safer, more bankable choices. What tipped the scales was a director who had seen unreleased early footage from her upcoming film and immediately recognized star potential nobody else had spotted yet. He moved quickly to secure her for the role before any other studio could realize what they were missing. She signed her contract for a modest sum with no profit share, a deal that would look remarkably small just a couple of years later once her career exploded. Interestingly, one of her first questions to the director wasn't about the songs or the schedule. She asked how they planned to keep the story from becoming overly sentimental, worried the material could tip into syrupy excess. That instinct for restraint is often credited as one of the reasons her performance still feels genuine instead of saccharine decades later. If casting Maria was a gamble, casting Captain Von Trapp was a battle. The actor who eventually took the role nearly turned it down more than once. On paper, the character struck him as flat, little more than a stiff, humorless authority figure with nothing interesting underneath. Big names were floated for the part, seasoned leading men known for commanding screen presence, but none of them quite fit the balance of sternness and vulnerability the role required. The actor who ultimately took the part refused to sign until real changes were made to the script. He pushed for a more layered character, someone who could be worldly and even charming, with his emotional walls coming down gradually because of Maria's influence rather than all at once. He wanted scenes that let him be strict in one moment and tender in the next, and the writers reworked key sequences to build in exactly that contrast. He later admitted that those revisions were what convinced him to fully commit to the role. Without that pushback, the Captain audiences remember complicated, guarded, but ultimately capable of real feeling, might never have existed at all. For all its sunlit, postcard perfect visuals, filming in and around Salzburg was plagued by miserable weather. Sudden rainstorms became a constant threat, forcing the crew to shoot in short, carefully timed windows between downpours. Scenes that looked simple on screen, like Liesel climbing back through a window after a late-night meeting, actually required more than a dozen takes because of continuity problems caused by shifting light and constant rain. A machine nicknamed for its ability to simulate a storm was used to spray the young actress with cold water between takes just to keep her looking properly drenched, leaving her freezing and miserable for hours at a stretch. Mud became its own obstacle. Roads leading up into the mountains turned so soft and waterlogged that vehicles couldn't be used to transport equipment, forcing the crew to haul cameras and gear by ox cart instead. Even the film's lead actress reportedly had to be carried up steep paths bundled in a fur coat while waiting to shoot the film's opening sequence. Delays piled up, costs climbed, and morale wore thin, yet none of that struggle ever shows up on screen. The finished film looks effortlessly sunny, a testament to how much editing can hide. The romantic kiss between Maria and the Captain is one of the film's most tender moments, but shooting it was anything but smooth. The crew relied on massive arc lights to create a soft, glowing evening look, standard technology for the era. But these lights had an unfortunate side effect. They made a strange groaning, almost comical noise whenever they powered on. Every time the 2 lead actors leaned in for the kiss, the sound would echo across the set and send them both into fits of laughter they simply couldn't suppress. It reportedly took around a dozen attempts to get a usable take. The director, increasingly frustrated by the delay and the ticking clock of the production budget, eventually solved the problem by shooting the moment in near darkness, which conveniently masked both the noise and the actors giggling. What audiences see as one smooth, romantic image is actually a patchwork of shots stitched together to hide hours of laughter and retakes. One of the more light-hearted looking scenes in the film, Maria and the children tipping out of a rowboat into a lake, was far riskier than it appears. The production needed several takes of the boat capsizing, each one meant to look spontaneous. The problem was that the youngest actress, playing one of the Vaughn-trapped children, could not swim. The plan was for Julie Andrews to fall forward into the water near her so she could help pull the child to safety. During filming, Andrews ended up falling backward instead, away from where the young actress was struggling in the water. For several tense seconds, the child was left floundering before crew members and fellow cast members rushed in to help her. It's a moment that could have gone very wrong. And it's a reminder that even the most playful scenes in family films sometimes carry real risk behind the scenes. The joyful bicycle sequence during Doremi looks completely spontaneous, but it took weeks of rehearsal before filming even began. The cast practiced their choreography on a studio lot, carefully timing every pedal stroke and stop to match the music before ever setting foot in Austria. The puppet show sequence later in the film required similar dedication, with the cast rehearsing for weeks to convincingly operate elaborate marionettes, so it would look like they were controlling every string themselves. Behind the scenes, the young cast was also visibly growing up during the shoot. One of the boys grew several inches taller over the course of filming, temporarily surpassing the actress playing the oldest daughter, who had to stand on hidden boxes in some shots just to maintain the illusion of height order. One of the younger actresses even lost baby teeth mid-shoot, requiring a quick fix from the props department to keep her smile consistent from scene to scene. Now here's where things get really fun, because once you start looking for continuity errors in this film, you can't stop finding them. During Liesel's rainy return through the bedroom window, her position on the bed noticeably shifts between shots, jumping from the center to the side and back again in ways that don't match real movement. The captain has his own share of inconsistencies. In one scene, he throws down a piece of fabric in frustration, only for it to vanish completely by the next shot. In another, he's shown holding a glass in one hand, and in the very next angle, it's somehow switched to the other. Background details tell their own story too. During a carriage ride through town, the same storefront appears to pass by the family twice, suggesting the crew reused the same stretch of street to stretch out the scene. Hairstyles shift oddly between wide shots and close-ups during musical numbers, hinting that footage from different days of shooting was blended together. Even the placement of the children changes unexpectedly from one frame to the next in certain scenes, evidence of just how complicated it was to coordinate that many young performers across multiple takes. The musical sequences, in particular, are full of these small mismatches. During one performance for the Baroness, a guitar appears to jump position between a wide shot and its immediate close-up, suggesting time was skipped between angles. During a later festival scene, the children's positions shift abruptly from one frame to the next, creating the strange sensation of characters teleporting a few feet to either side. Even the captain isn't safe from these staging quirks. During one seated performance, his position on a couch changes noticeably between camera angles, with no time for him to have physically moved. There's even a moment of accidental repetition, where the same short exchange and physical gesture appear to play out twice from different camera angles, almost as if two versions of the same take were mistakenly left in the final edit. It's worth remembering just how different this film could have looked. The role of the eldest daughter, in particular, saw a long list of talented young actresses audition, several of whom came close to landing the part before it ultimately went to the actress audiences know today. Physical transformations were common too. The actress playing Maria was naturally a brunette and had to have her hair dyed blonde for the role, a process that reportedly went wrong on the first attempt and left her with an unfortunate orange tint before it was corrected. The young actor playing Rolf underwent a similar hair treatment that ended up causing lasting damage. Even stunt work required creative solutions. For one tree climbing shot, a stunt double who had previously worked with a lead actress on another famous film stepped in to complete the sequence safely. We've saved a few of the best for last. During the family's escape sequence near the end of the film, they're shown hiding behind headstones that are, on close inspection, completely flat against a wall, making it physically impossible for anyone to actually be concealed behind them. During the cozy bedroom scene where Maria sings about her favorite things, one of the youngest actresses can clearly be seen mouthing along to the lyrics, even though her character isn't supposed to be singing at all. A similar slip happens at the end of Do-Re-Mi, where one of the boys continues moving his mouth as if still singing well after the music has actually stopped. Then there's the anachronism that's become something of a legend among trivia fans. During the family's dramatic getaway in a car, a brief shot of the vehicle's underside reveals tires of a type that wouldn't actually be manufactured for another decade, technology that simply didn't exist yet in the film's 1930 setting. And finally, listen closely during a quiet exchange between the captain and his friend Max. When the captain playfully taps him on the cheek, the sound design includes 3 distinct tapping noises, even though his hand only makes contact twice. None of these little slips take away from what makes this film so beloved. If anything, they make it feel more human, proof that even a film as polished and timeless as this one was made by real people working under real pressure, occasionally caving to fatigue, weather, laughter, and the simple limits of what a film crew can control. So which one of these caught you off guard? Let us know which blooper surprised you the most. And if you enjoyed digging into the hidden history behind this classic, stick around, because there are plenty more stories from behind the camera still waiting to be uncovered.